On the summer solstice, there are more hours of sunlight the farther north you go in the northern hemisphere. People in this hemisphere might notice that the sun is very high in the sky at noon. The summer solstice, also called the estival solstice or midsummer, occurs when one of Earth's poles has its maximum tilt toward the sun. It happens twice yearly, once in each hemisphere, northern and southern. For that hemisphere, the summer solstice is the day with the longest period of daylight and shortest night of the year, when the sun is at its highest position in the sky. Within the Arctic Circle, for the northern hemisphere, or Antarctic Circle, for the southern, there is continuous daylight around the summer solstice. The opposite event is the winter solstice. On the summer solstice, Earth's maximum axial tilt toward the sun likewise. The sun's declination from the celestial equator is 23.44 degrees. Since prehistory, the summer solstice has been seen as a significant time of year in many cultures and has been marked by festivals and rituals. Traditionally, in many temperate regions, especially Europe, the summer solstice is seen as the middle of summer and referred to as midsummer, although today in some countries and calendars it is seen as the beginning of summer. On the equinoxes, the 2 days of the year when both hemispheres experience the same amount of daylight and nighttime, the sun appears directly overhead at 90 degrees above the equator at noon. But on the northern summer solstice, the noon sun appears directly overhead at a higher latitude. The Tropic of Cancer, which sits about 23.5 degrees north of the equator and runs through Algeria, Niger, Libya, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Oman, India, Bangladesh, Myanmar, China, Taiwan, Mexico, the Bahamas, Mauritania, and Mali. The Tropic of Cancer is the most northerly latitude at which the sun can appear directly overhead at noon. Although the summer solstice is the longest day of the year for that hemisphere, the dates of earliest sunrise and latest sunset vary by a few days. This is because Earth orbits the sun in an ellipse, and its orbital speed varies slightly during the year. Although the sun appears at its highest altitude from the viewpoint of an observer in outer space, or a terrestrial observer outside tropical latitudes, the highest altitude occurs on a different day for certain locations in the tropics, specifically those where the sun is directly overhead, maximum 90 degrees elevation, at the subsolar point. This day occurs twice each year for all locations between the Tropic of Cancer and Tropic of Capricorn, because the overhead sun appears to cross a given latitude once before the day of the solstice, and once afterward. For example, Lahaina noon occurs in May and July in Hawaii. See solstice article. For all observers, the apparent position of the noon sun is at its most northerly point on the June solstice and most southerly on the December solstice. Each year, the summer solstice in the northern hemisphere falls on one of 2 days, June 20 or June 21. In the southern hemisphere, the summer solstice happens on December 21 or December 22. The date varies because the Gregorian calendar has 365 days, with an extra leap day added in February every 4 years. In reality, Earth's orbit around the sun takes 365.25 days, according to NASA. Due to this discrepancy, the solstice doesn't always occur on the same day. The summer solstice heralds the start of astronomical summer in the northern hemisphere and marks the day with the most daylight for the year. But what's the science behind the longest day and shortest night above the equator? Some parts of the northern hemisphere get so hot during the summertime that you might think Earth is closer to the sun. However, it's actually the opposite. Earth is farthest from the sun when it's summer in the northern hemisphere. On average, Earth is about 93 million miles, 150 million kilometers, from the sun, according to NASA. However, Earth will be farthest from the sun, a moment called aphelion, at 4:06 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time on July 6, 2023, when it will be 94,506,364 miles, 152,093,251 kilometers. From the Sun. That's about 2 weeks after the June solstice. Similarly, Earth will be closest to the Sun, a point called perihelion, at 7:38 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time on January 2, 2024, 2 weeks after the December solstice, when it will be 91,404,095 miles from our star. Solstices and equinoxes are markers of the seasons, which are caused by Earth's axis being tilted 23.5 degrees with respect to its orbit around the Sun, according to NASA. That tilt means different parts of Earth receive sunlight for different lengths of time depending on the time of year. On the summer solstice, the northern hemisphere is tilted toward the Sun, receiving the full glare of the Sun's rays, which means the longest day of the year. At the North Pole, the Sun literally does not set on the summer solstice. The exact opposite is true in the southern hemisphere, which experiences its winter solstice on the same day. At the South Pole, the Sun will not rise. There are 2 definitions and dates for each season: astronomical and meteorological. Astronomically, that is, defined by the solstices and equinoxes, summer in the northern hemisphere begins on the summer solstice and ends on the autumnal or fall equinox. So summer in the northern hemisphere lasts from June 20 or June 21 until September 21, 22, 23, or 24. However, the seasons do not last an equal number of days because Earth's speed varies as it travels around the Sun on an elliptical or egg-shaped orbit. Summer lasts an average of 93.6 days in the northern hemisphere and an average of 89 days in the southern hemisphere. Meteorological summer in the northern hemisphere lasts from June 1 through August 31, according to the UK's Met Office. Using this definition, winter lasts exactly 3 months, as do all seasons. Solstice means sun stands still in Latin, according to NASA. That's because the sunrise on the solstice is the farthest northeast and sunset is the farthest northwest of the year. For a few days before and after the solstice, the sun also appears close to these farthest points before slowly drifting back to rise and set due east at the following equinox. If there's so much sunlight in the northern hemisphere during the summer solstice, why isn't it the warmest day of the year? It's because it takes time for Earth's land and water to heat up, otherwise known as a seasonal lag. Seasonal lag is caused by Earth's water, which covers about 70% of the planet's surface and soaks up a lot of the heat, meaning it takes longer to heat up the land. After the summer solstice, the days begin to get shorter in the northern hemisphere. Northern mid-latitudes experience about 15 hours of daylight in the weeks following the summer solstice, compared with around 9 hours of daily sunlight around the winter solstice. In addition, the northern hemisphere is still tilted toward the sun, making it warm.